All right, we are back on stage for the second part of our Crowley discussion.
Crowley.
Yeah.
I won last time, remember?
You know, Ozzy Osbourne, I believe, does pronounce it Crowley.
I love Ozzy.
And Ozzy, he knows things.
Does it make it any different?
That metal implement in your hands will definitely cause me trouble as I edit this.
Did you say metal?
But I need a fidget spinner or something.
So, Brianna's been here for 30 seconds and already...
Just handed it back to me.
Sorry.
In the last episode of this discussion on Aleister, we talked about the first half of his life and how he got to his major occult and religious revelation, the Book of the Law.
Dun, dun, dun.
Today...
Sorry, I feel like I need it.
I like how you said Aleister to avoid.
Yeah,
I'm just tired of this
addressed him
conflict.
by his first name.
Today we're going to talk about how Crowley came to live according to the book and what exactly that meant. Now, there are two sides to today's discussion. The first is an exploration of the occult rites and phenomena that Crowley conjured, including a demon in the deserts of Algiers. Pretty cool. Yes. The second is the crazy lifestyle Crowley came to live. And sort of as a postscript, we're going to talk about Crowley's ability to influence other subsequent religious traditions like Wicca and Scientology.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we want to ask two questions about Crowley. First, can we call his brand of occultism, the way he practiced it, black magic? Was there an element of evil to the work? And second, did it cause his life to spiral out of control? In asking that second question, we're not even going to necessarily assume that his life did spiral out of control. That's for us to sort of figure out. All right. That's it. I've introduced him. We're back.
Okay.
Here we are. My name is Rob.
You sound relieved.
Kind of was.
The intro is the
got that
tensest
out.
part. My name is Dr. Rob Thompson. I am a professor of occult arts and sciences.
It changes a little bit every time.
I know. I like to have fun with what I am.
That was very profound.
Y'all.
Right? Yeah, it's what it means to be alive. I'm here with... I'm the Supreme Hierophant. That's my official title in the Secret Order of Alchemical Actors. My doctoring of occultism is an outside pursuit, outside the podcast. Olivia Litteral is across from me here, our Grand Master.
Hey, that's me.
And sitting next to her is our human of the third knob, her sister Brianna.
I feel like I should be called the metal detector.
That's the knob is made of metal.
But
How will we know if she's not informed?
I'm the detector of metal knobs.
Recent initiate John is going to be joining us to do our brief history today.
You'll be the metal detector.
John Cook, Shannon Landers, newly. What is this? She's not crowned. She's
bestowed.
Newly bestowed.
So ordained.
Inquisitor.
The what Inquisitor?
You're the
Inquisitor.
Right. I thought it was the Lizard Inquisitor.
No, we tried all those.
Yeah, we tried.
I only liked Inquisitor.
We chose one, and you said no.
Yep.
Now
Lizard Inquisitors for behind closed
That's my
doors.
prerogative as the Supreme Hierophant.
It's my nickname.
Yes, I believe.
Let's get to the pledge, and then we'll do the business meeting. We, the members of the Secret Order of Alchemical Actors, do solemnly commit ourselves to a full and honest telling of the history of the occult as far as we know it. All right, we have a few points of business for today's...
Jacob's in the back here shaking his head. He's like, not today, I'm not doing it.
Well, speaking of Jacob, so Jacob has been doing Aleister Crowley's voice for us, and we're going to invite him into the discussion circle just for a moment here, because it's time to bestow a title on Jacob.
Wow.
Yes. Oh, so Jacob apparently is fully responsible for expressing any glee about this or enthusiasm.
Yep, I'm the only one excited.
We
No one else
gasped.
seems to... Oh, yeah. Well, they
There's
gasped.
an audible gasp.
Sounded more like you were
I'm
afraid
sorry.
of
It was
giving
more
a
of
title.
like, why?
It was more like wonder and mystery.
Now,
kinda
Jacob,
scared.
I have thought long and hard about this,
Yep.
and I've actually come to a conclusion here. This is not going to be up for debate or democratic process here.
What do you even matter?
I have the perfect title for you. I think that you are going to need to be a knight of our order.
Ooh,
And we have no knights as of yet, so...
that is my favorite time of day.
Or it's not really day, is it?
You didn't mean time, did you?
I always mean time.
Okay.
So
What just happened?
What kind of knight is he?
he is a knight
A knight or a knight?
of the dangling serpent.
Ooh.
Yeah.
How
Can I
the serpent
say-
dangles.
Oh, I am well versed.
Did we just go E-rated? I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm well versed in.
I don't
how
know
the
that we have. I
serpents
think we-
dangle.
I was about to say something probably inappropriate, so.
I just
Don't we generally though? Why hold back?
I mean, I was gonna make a dick joke, but.
Well, most
That's the
of
point.
my-
That's-
The whole title is a dick joke. So,
Whoops.
we would like to offer some words of thanks to Llama Lumps yet again.
Llama lumps, llama lumps.
Llama Lumps
That's my
has
new song for Llama lumps.
joined our joyful family of patrons, and we're so pleased to have Llama Lumps in the family there. And we got a picture of Llama Lump's dog we could see.
Whoa, wait, what?
There's a dog?
Yes, Llama Lumps has got the, that's his, what do you call it? I'm making a circle with my hands here. Everyone's trying to
I'm
peer
not
through
going to
it.
tell you because I kind of like seeing
It's
you
his,
struggle.
his little
Yeah.
avatar. It's, you know how you get the little picture? His picture
Avatar.
is his dog.
Aw.
Yeah.
Anyway, so thank you, Llama Lumps. And Shannon, any business from the Instagrams you want to report?
Yes, actually. So one of our fans, Hayden, messaged us on Instagram with.
You sure she's a fan? Is that
Well-
a she?
I guess I'm assuming.
Oh, okay.
No, see, at the end of the comment, she says, big fan of your podcast.
Oh,
Peace
good.
and love, peace sign emoji, hands holding emoji, unicorn, and rainbow flag.
You have to translate that for me.
Again? I don't
Oh,
know
that
how
was
to
the
translate.
translation.
Yes, the emojis.
Oh, I'm out in the dark
You
here.
don't know, Rob, you gotta
I
get caught up with
accept
the
that-
emojis.
Anyway, so she's a fan. Peace and love, I get.
Yes, peace,
Yeah,
love,
peace and
and
love
unicorns.
to her as well. What does she have
Yes.
to say, Shannon?
Okay. Well, she made up a point that not only that she agreed with the idea that magic is art, which is what we said.
We did say that on the last
magic
podcast.
is
Yeah, we had a
art.
bit of a discussion about that.
Yeah, but she said she agreed with it, but not only that, but she believes that science is an art as well. To quote her, she says, "Science equals magic equals art."
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I've mentioned Keith Thomas before. He made the argument, it's an argument that I pretty well buy, that it's not so much that magic is like primitive technology, right? That, you know, it's like we developed this technology and we didn't need magic anymore. It's that as a culture, our mindset shifted, so we stopped believing in the imminence of the supernatural in this world, and that is what sort of led to this culture of there being opportunities to re-emphasize science and to develop these sort of technologies that we have today. So it's not that technology replaced magic, it's that the culture shifted. But along that same line, magic and science have sort of gone hand in hand. Isaac Newton practiced both alchemy and was the co-discoverer of calculus and developed the laws of motion and all these sorts of things. So there's this sort of confluence between science and magic. So I absolutely agree. Science is, in a certain sense, still like magic, like art, a product of the culture and an effort to reach out and understand. And I think what she's getting at here, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Shannon, is that there are no truly certain objective truths, that all of it is processed through us as subjective cultural beings. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like, that's what it's.
Am
from
I
what
now
I
talking in
gathered,
emojis
yeah.
to you? Does
I
this all
only-
sound like
I only speak in emojis.
praying hands, unicorn horn? Okay. All right. So I believe I challenged you last episode, Shannon, to come up with some themes for potential fan art on the Instagram.
Ooh, yes. So fan art, I think it should. Yes.
What what were you thinking? As far as that fan art is concerned, what can folks draw for us? Maybe they can. We're going to be talking about a desert ritual that Crowley does today. Maybe they can give us a drawing of Choronzon, the dweller of the threshold.
Oh yes, but with corgis.
Okay, so anything they would like to incorporate corgis into, we're open to. So
yes,
any of
black
Aleister
magic.
Crowley's rituals that they would like to illustrate, with perhaps Olivia involved and a corgi.
Aleister Crowley as a corgi.
There you go. I'm interested
Corgi
in any of
Crowley.
those images. Very nice. So I do want to make on the Patreon issue. I'll come back to my area here. We are planning to post some new bonus content. So on Patreon, if you become our patron for $1 a month or more, you get access to all of our bonus content, which includes outtakes, but also bonus interviews and sort of mini episodes.
And a little secret surprise soon.
Oh, and a secret surprise is coming that we'll be talking about later.
Brianna!
A couple months or later in the month.
I'm sorry, everything's a dick joke to me.
So, delightful. What fun today. So,
I hate myself.
we're going to be posting an additional Poe story.
Ooh.
Start either over the weekend or early in the week next week. So, we encourage you to go on and just become a patron. Only $1 a month. That's all it takes. But if you're feeling up to $2, like Llama Lumps, or even up to $5, we would be most grateful. It keeps us going. It takes us about 40 hours to produce these episodes, between editing and researching and writing and recording, and there's a lot of man hours that go into all that stuff.
Man hours?
Human hours. Serpent hour. What? It's a thing. That's
Man
it's a
hours?
phrase. It's a
Man hours?
man out.
That
I'm a
sounds
man.
Like, it
Man.
doesn't sound like what I
Anyway,
think you mean it to be.
I'm closing up this business meeting.
Business adjourned.
I'm so confused.
I know.
I don't know what the joke was on the man hours. Crowley's wife Rose gave birth to the girl who she had been pregnant with when Crowley arrived at the Book of the Law in Cairo. They named her Nuit Ma Ahathor Hecate Sappho Jezebel Lilith.
Literally, I got the wrong name. That should have been my name.
That's-
That's gonna probably be my children's name.
But little Nuit Ma Ahathor Hecate Sappho Jezebel Lilith was not long for this world, so you might want to think about that. She died of typhoid on a return trip from China to England.
Well, shit, okay.
Mine won't die from that.
You're gonna have the exact same name though. I feel like you're tempting fate.
Or are
there.
you gonna
No,
have
I
like
might rearrange
7
it a little
kids?
bit.
Oh, you could name 7 children.
each
Each
have
of
one.
I
them.
already told
That
Ryan if
seems
we have
safer.
a daughter, her name will be Lilith, and he can't change that.
Will it be Nuit Ma Ahathor Hecate Sappho Jezebel Lilith?
Now it will be.
Well-
Zapho was nice too in there.
At the time that his child died, which was a sad thing, and we're sort of glossing over the sadness of this,
I'm
Crowley
sad.
had been in Asia to climb Kanchenjunga, the 3rd highest mountain in the world, standing between Nepal and India. And this was the source of the greatest controversy surrounding his mountain climbing life. His fellow climbers confronted Crowley over his treatment of their porters, which they thought was unnecessarily cruel. Crowley had been leading the party, and the argument caused all but one climber to decide to give up and turn back. But on the way down, and still more or less within view of Crowley, an avalanche triggered up the mountain, burying all of them.
Huh?
One by one, they dug themselves out,
Oh, wow. That's metal.
but they couldn't retrieve one of the climbers or any of the porters.
That's less metal.
They called up to Crowley for help.
Look out! Avalanche! Look out! Help! Help! Over here! Help over here! Anyone? Can anyone help over here?
The climber who had been with him ran down to assist them, but Crowley himself wouldn't come. The next day, he hiked down past them as they dug to recover the corpses, and continued into Darjeeling.
I mean, at least got those corpses.
He did not, though.
Someone did.
He was
They
giant
were
middle finger
retrieved.
to all of them the whole time.
Wait, so what happened? There was an avalanche and
So
people
Crowley
dug
was
them-
being a dick. to the porters. And they were like, Crowley, you're being a dick. And he was like, screw you guys. And they were like, we're not climbing with you anymore. We're going home. So on their way down the mountain, an avalanche buried them, but they hadn't gotten very far, so Crowley could still see them. And his friend, who stayed with him, sprinted down to help them, and Crowley just watched.
You just
And
watched
then,
them all die.
as they were trying to dig out the corpses, he just walked past them.
That
Sounds like him.
Yeah.
I still love him though.
Pretty
it's metal,
grim
but
stuff.
not in a good way.
Back at home, Rose bore a second daughter, Lola Zaza.
Ooh, I like that one
How
too.
about that one? Yeah.
So short though.
Lola Zaza.
But their marriage was entering its twilight phase. Rose had become an alcoholic and subsequently went insane.
Okay, that type of Twilight face.
Yes.
I was
Not a romantic
not
Twilight.
a sexy Twilight.
No sexy Twilight. Crowley is often blamed for Rose's insanity since, as we'll find out, Rose wasn't the only one of his wives to go insane. But we have to remember that Rose herself was a wild child long before Crowley came around, sleeping with married men and faking pregnancies to get abortion money. That having been said, Crowley may or may not have been in the habit of hanging her upside down by the heels in the wardrobe when he had company over.
In like a kinky way, or
Yeah.
In
but
like a, I'm sticking you in the closet while my friends are here way, but upside down
Why
by the
upside down?
heels.
is it gonna get kinky later?
So,
Where is the kink factor?
this is the thing about Crowley that we're going to be dancing around today. That's a ridiculous way to treat a human being, to hang them upside down by the
Yeah.
heels, and
Yeah.
just begs for a comedy in a certain sense. But
Yeah.
it's also a horribly abusive way to treat a woman.
Do we know he did this for certain?
We don't.
Exactly.
However, it stands to reason from a man who walked by corpses buried under snow of people who were alive and knew him just minutes before.
Maybe he had
Also-
somewhere to be.
That's such
Maybe
a
he had a meeting. He was running late.
Like the closet thing is just so
Very
ridiculous.
important
Like, why? I feel like it has to be a thing.
We'll be sort of negotiating, I think, between Crowley as a kind of holy fool and Crowley as a legitimate menace. We'll see what we come down on here. Crowley formed the Order of the Silver Star, styling himself Master, and started to adopt disciples who funded his travel as his fortune was spending out.
I'm a master.
Yeah, I was about to say, is that what we're doing?
Kind of, yeah, but yeah.
Nice.
But I'm your Hierophant.
But if
So
there
I just
was,
have to get rid of you,
if there
like
was,
he did with the Golden Dawn.
if there was ever an avalanche, I would probably help you guys.
Thanks.
Oh.
Yeah.
The first of his disciples was Lord Tankerville.
That's amazing.
That's
Why didn't I
name.
get that name?
And he accused, because this guy already had it, and he
Oh.
accused Crowley of being too condescending
There can only be
and
one.
just quit and gave up.
Huh.
The second was the poet Victor Neuburg, featured in the second most significant occult event in Crowley's life, which was the journey into the Algiers desert. In 1909, so we'll tell that story now.
Nice.
In 1909, the two men set out for Algiers by rail, and then trekked into the North African desert on foot. Crowley could speak some Arabic, and knew Muslim culture well enough to get by. He made Neuburg shave his head, except at the temples, where he styled his hair like two horns, making Neuburg into his little demon familiar, to enhance Crowley's eminence in the eyes of the Algerians.
I
This
love
is my
this.
favorite story,
This
by
is
the way.
beautiful.
How?
Like I've done to you today, Shannon.
Well, I can barely put my hair up in a bun. Like, I don't know how to make it look like
You gotta
horns.
shave it off.
Yeah,
You're
that's-
right.
yeah.
It's holding me back. I have red hair. It would look kind of cool as horns.
It
Like,
Yeah,
would
we
look
should
very
really
well,
get on that.
I'm
If we
gonna
get enough
go
Patreon.
get a
Oh,
reset.
there you go. You heard it here. If we
Get
get
enough Patreon, I will shave Shannon's head.
if we get
Except
on
for
that
horns.
Patreon, we will give Shannon Neuburg horns. As Crowley and Neuburg traveled deeper into the desert, they encountered a series of powerful beings who revealed the secrets of their world to Crowley in particular in symbolic form, but to Neuberg sort of by extension. Crowley concluded this journey at Busada, a town situated in an oasis in the middle of this desert. From this base of operations, he would conduct the most challenging and terrifying of his occult journeys. After 2 nights sleeping in the desert, it occurred to Crowley that he should resume the work he had begun in Mexico 9 years before. He would find a secluded spot, speak a ritual invocation, and stare into a piece of topaz until he astrally projected into an encounter with the ethers.
It's my birthstone.
Nice.
We're meant to be together.
The formula for contacting ethers had been recorded by the Renaissance mage John Dee 300 years earlier, and Dee described a hierarchy of 31 of these. Crowley had contacted the first few in Mexico and now began working his way through the list in the deserts of Algiers. So sort of like
a lot of work, I feel like.
Yeah.
And I guess the ethers are pretty cool about taking a 9-year break. They were like, no, you don't have to start over.
fine.
You just
You can
pick up
just-
where you left off.
Yeah.
We'll finish this later. We're on your time.
Yep.
At the 15th ether, he was admitted into a secret order of adepts. At the 14th, so we're counting down
Oh.
from 31.
okay.
Okay, so we're not.
So at the so we went from 31. That was the first one.
Oh, so he's like halfway through.
We're counting down to 1, yeah. At the 14th ether, a black angel appeared with a star on his forehead, wreathed in darkness.
Whoa, that's what I want as a spirit guide.
I feel like we need a ringtone of Brianna doing her metal sound.
What if I had one?
Yes.
We'll put that on Patreon. The earth shook, the wind howled, and the beasts cried out in the distance, says Crowley.
This is so metal.
Lights stirred in the darkness. The angel told Crowley to depart. He could not be invoked in sunlight. The secrets he had to reveal to Crowley could only be shared under cover of night. He should climb the mountain Dale Adin, erect an altar, and await the angel there.
We accordingly took loose rocks and built a great circle, inscribed with the words of power, and in the midst we erected an altar, and there I sacrificed myself. The fire of the all-seeing sun smote down upon the altar, consuming utterly every particle of my personality. I am obliged to write in hieroglyph of this matter, because it concerns things of which it is unlawful to speak openly under penalty of the most dreadful punishment. But I may say that the essence of the matter was that I had hitherto clung to certain conceptions of conduct which, while perfectly proper from the standpoint of my human nature, were impertinent to initiation. I could not cross the abyss till I had torn them out of my heart.
So when he says that he sacrificed himself, what does that mean? What's that entail?
All right, so you know what this entails.
Yeah, I do.
You know where we're going.
But I
want
to talk about this more. This is my favorite part.
All right, Crowley is vague about the exact nature of his sacrifice, but occultism scholar Alex Owen says that he allowed himself to be penetrated by Neuberg in service of the god Pan.
Yeah, that's right.
So, I mean, it makes sense.
Neuberg had been temporarily possessed by Pan in order to perform the
He's
act
Pan.
of penetration.
It makes sense. Pan.
Yeah.
So, well, go ahead, Brianna. Go fill us in on Pan and his panness.
He's rough.
He's he's sexy goat man.
He is.
Yeah,
He's got goat legs and goat horns and human parts.
it's not necessarily a good sexy ghost man.
Some
Goat
Man, I
man.
said ghost on
And
it.
he
like-
goes around banging all the nymphs of the forest and
Some
things.
Wiccans have taken him up as their like horned god.
Yeah.
Pan.
Oh, okay.
They'll use Pan instead.
That makes sense.
So
Yeah.
So you felt like he had to have this to happen to him in order to like.
had to have it happen.
Olivia's using
Or
air
did he-
quotes.
Oh,
This is
on a
just
podcast.
This is
Sorry.
a very complex story. to
Remember,
cover
the
up, and
dude
you
was
just,
bi.
I was
Like,
gonna say, I think
is-
he
yeah, he's
might have
bisexual.
just wanted to have sex with him.
It didn't turn out great for the other guy.
But he did believe that sex was an opening onto
Right.
higher planes as well.
Yeah.
Which y'all
It
Wiccans
makes
have
a
adopted.
lot of sense, yeah.
Yeah.
So
He's a kind of a power bottom here.
He really is a power bottom.
Just
Right.
taking one for the team.
Well, no, he is the
No.
team.
No, he's taking it
like-
all right.
Basically, like, telling
Shannon, you're
you,
missing
yeah.
the power of the power bottom situation.
Jacob is like dying
Educate
right
me.
now.
All right, Jacob needs
Can I
to speak
explain?
as himself. Go ahead.
As
Are
the
you speaking as Crowley or as yourself?
both?
Yeah.
Because I see a lot of myself in him. Well, he saw a lot of people. But anyways,
Yeah.
so as the resident gay of this,
For the cult.
yes, a power bottom is someone that they're always willing to be on the bottom, as it says in the name. Okay.
Yes.
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 So he wasn't really taking one for the team. He wanted to take it.
He's running that team.
He was taking it for himself.
He was
But
like,
he explained it as if like he was giving up something. That was like
yeah,
what,
to the god.
yeah.
But with Neuberg, he's the power player. Literally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exhausted, Crowley went back to Bu Sada and went to bed. And then returned...
I mean, after all that penetration,
a big
what
day,
else
yeah.
are you gonna do?
And then he returned to the ether at 10 minutes to 10. The ether of the Black Angel. The angel whispered the secrets of the masters to Crowley, and Crowley saw the masters in a vision standing before him, all identical to one another. Crowley's new occult name would be the Instaquisitor. No, it's not. It's Nemo. It's Nemo. That'd be weird, wouldn't
it
it?
caught my attention.
Yeah, I bet that woke you up there.
I
It was
was so,
Nemo.
like, caught up.
N-E-M-O.
Pixar. Aleister Crowley.
Yeah, Finding Crowley.
Nemo.
It's just Alistair dog paddling.
Yep.
Crowley realized a strange thought.
Because Nemo's in water. I was
He, you are late to all of our parties today.
Shannon.
Shannon's still in the abyss.
I'm just over
This is
here with
great.
like my Spider-Man blanket. I'm just relaxing, all right?
Crowley realized that he should devote himself to aid humankind in its evolution, in the mode of Jupiter, by governing and teaching men to aspire to become nobler, holier, worthier, kinglier, kindlier, and more generous.
It's a lot of years, and then just it ended.
Yeah, you had to get off the
I was
ers.
expecting
Yeah,
another
they-
A
one.
lot of
Mix
those
it
are
up.
associated in astrology with Jupiter.
But not sounding very black magic at the moment.
No.
The penetration by Pan, a little black magic-y.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't
now-
know.
Now
I know a lot
we're
of
less
Wiccans
so.
that probably would be down.
Yeah.
All right, so the 11th ether instructed him to cross a great abyss, whose power was to dissipate him into dead dust without the protection of his guardian angel.
Dissipate
into dead dust. The alliteration.
Yes.
Because the pit was presided over by the dweller of the abyss. This was a figure that came up during our discussion in our very first season.
I was about to say, I was the dweller.
Yes, this is Bulwer Lytton's concept in his first occult novel, Zanoni. It's a highly influential book, and the concept of the Dweller of the Abyss really informed a lot of occultism in the 19th century, and Crowley here. So he has got to get by this Dweller of the Abyss, whose name is Choronzon.
Ooh.
Choronzon. Who was, according to Crowley, really a being of nothing.
Same.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
like
about
the
to say.
black formless abyss, right? Of
Same.
nothingness.
Yep.
So Choronzon was a formless, malignant force constantly striving and failing to take on meaningful being. Same.
How college students feel right now.
That's how I've always
I am
felt,
here to
yeah.
form you into something meaningful. So you
Aw.
must heed me, or you will become like Choronzon.
Which is also
Do
why
you
we need Patreon.
Yes.
Please do not let us become like Choronzon.
No, no, we don't need you to.
Please save us from the
No,
abyss.
that is not.
Yes.
We are not in the abyss. Crowley is. Neuberg stood in a protective circle and invoked Choronzon in a triangle opposite the circle, giving the demon form by sacrificing the blood of 3 pigeons to him.
Oh.
Crowley stood apart in his ceremonial robe with the hood drawn over his face. The demon took many forms, including Crowley himself, a woman Neuberg loved, and a serpent, and tried to tempt Neuberg out of his protective circle. Kicking sand and distracting Neuberg with his raving, the demon managed to break a hole in the circle and attacked Neuberg. Neuberg invoked God and stabbed at the demon with a magical dagger, causing him to stagger back to his triangle.
Did you say he invoked God?
Neuberg did, yeah.
Like God.
God,
Like,
God.
God.
Was
Big God.
Crowley like, what the...
Well, I'll tell you what Crowley was doing in a moment. But first, back to the drama of Neuberg and the demon wrestling in the desert.
Yep.
The demon finally took the form of a woman that Neuberg loved, raging and seducing. These visions all belong to Neuberg himself, so it's possible that this happened, it's possible it was all in Neuberg's head. For his part, Crowley remained in trance, wait for it, seated inside the triangle where the demon Choronzon had been manifesting.
At last, all the energy latent in the blood of the pigeons was exhausted by the successive phantoms, so that it was no longer able to give form to the forces evoked. The triangle was empty. During all this time, I had astrally identified myself with Choronzon, so that I experienced each anguish, each rage, each despair, each insane outburst. My ordeal ended as the last form faded.
I'm still upset about those pigeons, so I'm still,
You didn't think pigeons had to die for this?
it's just sad,
Shannon.
you know? Right, the whole human sacrifice thing.
It's okay. Just it's okay. The
Sometimes-
pigeons are better off.
Sometimes they're better. They're in a better place.
Better place.
Being sacrificed.
Pigeon heaven?
Sure.
Um,
Okay, I'm
If
I'm
that
open
makes you
to
feel
that.
better, yeah. Sure. Sure, Shannon.
This note about Crowley astrally identifying with Choronzon gives away a secret that Crowley does not come out with in the confessions. According to Alex Owen, Crowley actually stood inside the triangle, the space where the demon manifested, risking obsession by the infernal non-being. The whole encounter lasted about 2 hours. This confrontation, beyond any other that Crowley and Neuberg experienced with the ethers in the desert, would stay with and haunt both men for the rest of their lives. But it also brought Crowley a new kind of understanding, which came to him as he worked his way through the final ethers on the other side of the abyss.
I understood that sorrow had no substance, that only my ignorance and lack of intelligence had made me imagine the existence of evil. As soon as I had destroyed my personality, as soon as I had expelled my ego, the universe, which to it was indeed a frightful and fatal force, fraught with every form of fear, was so only in relation to this idea, I. So long as I am I, all else must seem hostile.
Let's interrogate this notion of Crowley as wicked. I was sort of hinting at this a moment ago. And a practitioner of wicked deeds. Is he a black magician? He determines here, at the height of his occult power, in the depths of one of his most profound occult visions, and a formative moment for his career, that evil doesn't exist. We could say that Crowley had deluded or deceived himself to give himself a pass to perform evil deeds. But Crowley isn't alone in asserting that there is at bottom no such thing as evil. The visionary nun St. Julian of Norwich came to the same conclusion after a prolonged illness led to a vision of Jesus in the medieval period.
So if things aren't evil, then what do they... how do they explain bad things? Or are they saying...
Well, then you get into
doesn't-
Theodicies and trying to
guess-
explain how evil exists.
So is it just saying that, like, evil doesn't exist? It's just, like...
So
we just kind
Jacob,
of made it up?
Jacob Boehme, for example, the sort of proto-theosophists, believed that good and evil were just opposite sides of the same divine power. So that evil is not this oppositional force, it's just part of the same thing.
Yeah.
American spiritualists, who I know and love, have argued since the 19th century that evil is just what they call good evolving. So in other words, it's a sort of unformed ethical state, and the focus of a spiritualist is to rehabilitate rather than condemn what we might call a lost soul.
Oh, I feel that.
Yeah, no, I
Huh.
agree with that.
Do you see what I mean, Shannon?
so
So
we
it's not
shouldn't-
that things aren't, that people don't do bad things. Some things are bad. But that doesn't mean that there is such thing as pure evil.
A lot of people in Wicca, like New Age Wicca, say that there's no lighter, like, there's no white or black magic. Magic is just magic. So, it's kind of, I guess, an easier way of thinking of it.
And the reincarnationist religions all sort of tend in this direction, that we're in this evolutionary state from bad to good, or low to high, rather than evil and good. Like, they don't come into play.
So
It's
it
just
should
there's
be
lower and higher impulses.
It's not like,
It's not categorized in different groups. It's just the same thing, just
Well, you
helping
kind
it become
of...
better.
What we would call evil is really lower
it's
acts.
just it's like a spectrum.
Yeah.
In Norse, it's a very heavy thing where there's not an evil. It's like it's the spectrum of things that you can do, and it's not seen as bad or good. It's just lower, or higher on it.
We strive for higher acts and to be higher people.
Okay.
For Crowley, evil doesn't exist because we're all fundamentally connected. That's his logic here. So-called evil things are not out to get us. They are joined with us, and like the demon Choronzon, who Crowley merged with in the desert, are part of assisting us along on our journey to spiritual fulfillment. The scholar Alex Owen makes a parallel between Crowley's experience with the demon and immersing his self, with a capital S, in the unconscious. So he sort of submerges himself into his own unconsciousness. His conscious ego fights to maintain its separateness, but is ultimately subsumed and dissolved in the desert. It's possible that Crowley was lost here, that the demon overwhelmed him. He reached the pinnacle of his career as a magician and went mad. His life became increasingly chaotic after this experience. His rituals became self-consciously depraved, and he struggled to keep his head above water financially. This, in theory, in Owen's theory, was the moment when Crowley lost control of the unconscious forces that had helped him to develop his practice and write the Book of the Law. It was no longer a productive force that he could access for his own ends, but rather the unconscious came to dominate him, running and arguably ruining his life.
Real scared of that happening.
Say 2 hours, 2 hours deep in that type of energy, you're bound to get
doesn't
some
sound
sort of
fun.
lost. No, it's really hard to keep yourself after that.
Let me try another take on this. I think it's possible that Crowley's sense that there is no evil force opposing or undermining him could be an illusion conjured by the demon itself, when in fact the demon has taken over his life. I mean, this is sort of what Owen is suggesting. It makes us think of the classic line from The Usual Suspects. You guys know this movie, The Usual Suspects, with Kevin Spacey?
I know of it.
Yeah.
Kaiser Sose? Okay, well, this line originally comes from Baudelaire. It's La plus belle des ruses de diable est de
Devil.
vous persuader qu'il n'existe pas. La plus belle, yeah. It means, nice job, Olivia.
I'm really excited about that.
Diable. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was persuading you that he doesn't exist.
Oh, I see that quote all the time.
Yeah.
The Usual Suspects really popularized it.
So he was saying, so the devil was taking over Crowley, was taking control of his body?
So he's saying that that demon basically was making Crowley think the way he was about evil in order to have further control over Crowley, correct?
If you don't believe in Satan or the devil, then the devil is one. Because you will do the devil's deeds, not knowing that the devil is controlling you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's hold this up against Crowley's own view on what it means to be a responsible magician.
Magicians forget that to dare must be backed by to will, and to know, all three being ruled by to keep silence, which last means many things, but most of all so to control oneself that every act is done noiselessly. All disturbance means clumsiness or blundering.
The image of Crowley confidently sitting in the triangle suggests a daring act. His meditative silence throughout seems to illustrate that he had control throughout the ritual. Crowley warns that magic, which he spells with a K, invites obsession by every deceitful demon.
Wait, why does he spell with a K? Did he just decide he liked it better that
It's
way?
like an older thing.
Oh,
Some
okay.
people, there are still people out there, like different practices, that if you do not spell magic with a K, will lose their damn minds.
This is a serious thing. It's like how you spell theater, R-E or
Yeah.
E-R.
Yeah.
This is only specialists get upset about this.
Yeah.
but-
Like, people
Okay.
will lose their minds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they do.
Crowley warns that magic with a K invites obsession by every deceitful demon, by puffing up the fool's pride and making him think himself a god. It is such cases that keep me constantly on my guard against being too proud to fight, or to sweep the floor, if it comes to that, he says. So we have to keep ourselves humble, really. This is not sounding like crazy, arrogant magician man, is it?
No.
We have to keep ourselves humble, or we will become servants of the demon.
Yeah.
Crowley describes being utterly exhausted by this experience, and almost unable to continue working his way through the ethers because of the unsupportable strain the work put on him. Crowley was often arrogant, and acted as if he were divinely inspired, especially with his disciples. But in the days after his desert ritual, as we've observed, when he received this revelation about the non-existence of evil, he was certainly feeling very far from godlike. He was weak, he was worn down, and he was struggling to complete this occult exercise. Judging Crowley on his own terms, he wasn't deceived or destroyed by the demon. Given all that we know of his life up to this point, it's likely that the increasingly repulsive and incendiary natures of his rituals was just Crowley being Crowley, and his spending can be chalked up to his tendency to live a playboy's expensive lifestyle, which he'd been doing up to that point and had no reason to stop. So did he go mad or didn't he? If Crowley was a little mad after the desert, he could have just as easily been a little mad before. For Alex Owen, this is the moment when Crowley truly embraced the Book of the Law and became the Beast. The Book of the Law speaks of Crowley in the third person as the Beast and says that he doesn't understand its contents. After crossing the abyss, Crowley's separate identities, personal, magical, and prophetic, merged into one, and he embraced the socially disruptive, norm-breaking demanded by Horus in his great revelation. In 1910, he began experimenting with mescaline.
As you do sometimes,
You know?
in your life.
What is that?
It's coming. John's going to tell you all about it.
Oh.
He developed his third and final great occult adventure, the rites of Eleusis. These were performed once a week on Wednesdays at Caxton Hall for a paying audience and celebrated one per night, an occult progression of planets. So the first time it was Saturn, then Jupiter, then Mars, the Sun, Venus, Mercury, finally the Moon. Leaving out Neptune, I guess, and Uranus, and poor old Pluto. You guys are kindergartners.
It's because Jacob laughed that I laughed.
Uranus.
Ew.
Can we not?
Can we stop?
In preparation... Oh, his new mistress, Leela Waddell, accompanied these drug-fueled explorations of spiritual ecstasy on the violin.
New Scarlet Woman.
She just played the violin.
New Scarlet Woman, yeah. Well, because Rose...
Out with the old.
She's out, yeah. In preparation for the rites, Crowley performed a rite of Artemis at the office of the Equinox in London. Writing for The Sketch, Raymond Radcliffe described the scene.
The room was dark. Only a dull red light shone upon an altar. Various young men, picturesquely clad in robes of white, red, or black, stood at different points around the room. Some held swords. The incense made a haze, through which I saw a small white statue illuminated by a tiny lamp hung high on the cornice.
A cup of brownish liquid was passed around at these public events.
Brownish liquid.
You mean to say that does?
No, it's not. It's not.
You had no other way
No.
to describe that.
What would it be?
Mescaline.
Gravy.
Neuberg was there to perform and warned his friends not to drink too much of it. Oh. Okay, it contained, Brianna, fruit juice, alcohol, mescaline, and either morphine or heroin.
Was this the equivalent of like jungle juice back in the day?
Yeah, this is it. This is your jungle juice.
Wow.
Morphine, heroin, and mescaline.
Just say with that
Also, a
heroin, it's
little
close
bit
enough.
of pear juice.
Yeah, just a little bit of
Just a
juice.
smudge.
Just to keep that nutritional value.
Yes. At the turn of the century, drugs were fashionable and taken by artists and intellectuals for a variety of reasons, but they quickly came to be associated with thrill-seeking among the lower classes, and consequently, they got less cool.
Yeah.
For Crowley, if the poors are doing it, it's not cool anymore. For Crowley, drugs not only made magical encounters with otherworldly forces. What's going on with you?
You guys are like hand signing.
Jacob was just like, that's me.
Oh, he's hanging out with... Yeah, that's you. You don't like the poors. You don't want to do the same drugs they're
You
doing.
heard it here, listeners.
For Crowley...
Jacob hates poor people.
Especially their drugs, too.
He's playing Crowley. He's in character. For
Is he?
Crowley, he is. For Crowley, drugs not only made magical encounters with otherworldly forces easier to come by, but they also allowed for repeatable mystical experiences, which rendered a kind of scientific approach to the supernatural. For Mathers, good old Mathers from the Golden Dawn,
Mathers.
and many members of the Golden Dawn, spiritual training and technique were the only valid means of achieving altered states of consciousness, and drugs were a lazy and dangerous shortcut to be avoided.
That's interesting considering they used drugs for hundreds of years to do.
But not Mathers. He says you got to make that journey on your own.
That's too much work.
That's a lot of work.
Don't get lazy. Crowley, only the working man and woman
Can enter the
can
occult.
get it well safely, man. You know,
Safely,
wait till you
you're
hear what
right.
happens to this dude. You know where we're going with this. Crowley understood that drugs could cause a dulling of the will and undermine the user, but he believed that he could master them for their ability to manipulate consciousness. Stimulants like cocaine to sharpen.
Does anyone ever master cocaine? Like, what?
Cocaine masters you.
I was gonna say.
Oh, but depressants like opium to soften.
Also masters you.
And hallucinogens like good old mescaline to explore supernatural visions. Now, yes, is the time to find out what mescaline
I was
is.
about to say,
Thank you,
I still
because-
don't know.
Let's invite John Cook into the circle. John, come on over.
Hello.
And
Hello.
please give us our brief history of mescaline.
All right, here's a brief history of mescaline.
Oh, wow.
As ordered.
As promised.
One brief history coming right up. Mescaline was derived from peyote, the buttons of the cactus used in Native American rituals. The use of peyote and religious rituals goes back as far as 5,700 years among the Huicules in Mexico. The Navajos began using peyote more recently when it was introduced through contact with other tribes.
Yeah, so people are always like, oh, them Navajos, they did the peyote, but really it was a much older tradition that they just sort of adopted.
The round buttons on top of the San Pedro cactus are carefully cut to keep the rest of the plant from rotting.
Yeah, it's a sort of sustainable way of harvesting your buttons. You don't have to kill the whole plant.
Oh, that's really nice.
Then the buttons, are chewed or brewed in tea. The bitter taste is nauseating, but induces a hallucinogenic effect.
Yeah, you purge a heck of a lot when you take the mescaline.
So it just tastes so bad that it makes you like...
No, the drug itself makes you physically ill.
Okay.
I feel like I would not want to be throwing up while tripping balls.
Yeah, no.
But you would be.
That
That
sounds
sounds awful.
like the worst.
Careless over-harvesting in the last several decades have landed the San Pedro cactus on the endangered species list in South Texas. When Crowley first began experimenting with the drug in the first decade of the 20th century, it was known as an
Anticipation.
analonium.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Luini.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's that?
When Crowley first began experimenting... I'm gonna
There's
just...
an air brief history to explain what's happening.
Well, he's about to tell you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, John.
Yeah, you're good. All right. When Crowley first began experimenting with the drug in the first decade of the 20th century, it was known as Analonium Luini, after Louis Lewin, the
What a
German
name.
pharmacologist.
Let's just pause for Lewis for a second there.
Louis Lewin.
He has this. It's the exact same name, but with one letter changed at the end. Louis Lewin.
His
Some
parents.
arsonists were-
Yeah. I bet they're just all Lewises.
Yes.
Like 10 generations
what
of
else would you-
Lewises in the Lewin
Yeah,
family.
There's some Lewis, there's some...
But they each like have a
Louis.
letter different.
They,
but
yeah,
it's
they
still
go
the
by a
same
little.
name.
Yeah, they're all Lewis, but yeah, they go by Lou. They go by Louis. Some are just L.
Yeah, let's say what's
The edgy, younger, gothy son.
the
millennial.
The millennial.
Take
Yeah.
off the L, it's just...
Anyway, who is this guy, John?
Lewin was a German pharmacologist who published the first report on the psychoactive properties of the cactus in 1888. German Arthur Hefter isolated the drug from the cactus in 1897. He compared the effects of peyote and the isolated mescaline by experimenting on himself.
Dangerous stuff.
Oh, he just threw himself right
Yeah.
in there.
Yep. Took it.
Okay.
He's the Jekyll and Hyde of mescaline.
Hefter was also responsible for discovering the arsenic deposited in human hair, creating the widely used test for arsenic poisoning.
What? We just jump from drug trips to arsenic poisoning.
Yeah.
Like what?
Because that's what he did. He did two things.
That's-
Two
But
famous
it's
things.
like that was such a
Wow.
weird segue. All right, keep going. It's fine.
his countryman Ernst Spath
Ooh, that's a name.
synthesized the drug in 1919.
Your synthetic mescaline there.
Ugh.
His name was.
And I bet you don't get sick on the synthetic. I don't know, though.
I feel like you'd get.
I feel like you'd still get
You
sick.
probably get less sick. Why synthesize it? It's just going to do the exact same thing.
It's got to be worse for your body, though, right?
Yeah, synthesized drugs are way worse than natural
It's
drugs.
non-organic.
You got to get that organic Whole Foods mescaline, you know?
Yeah, you
Gotta get it right from the
Yep.
Anyway,
And that's a brief history of mescaline.
very
that
nice.
was a brief
Oh,
history.
yeah.
It's delightful.
I feel like I learned so much about
You didn't
drugs.
botch it like we do.
Oh, wow, thanks for that, Bria.
I included myself. You know, it's not. It's rough.
It's not a literal sister
Then again,
skill.
he didn't have much to botch. Why do we
Yeah, you give
give
us.
us like the real
He had to
difficult
say
stuff?
and halonium and.
I
Give
told him
me,
how to
like-
say that. I literally told him anhelonium, and I whispered it to him.
Well, I guess you should have been doing the mescaline.
I just like
Don't
picture
tell my
Brie-
sister.
I'm not
She
gonna
don't do
do the
mescaline. You shouldn't do
mescaline. I'm not
mescaline.
gonna do
It'd
mescaline.
be very
but-
ill.
I just like picture Brie like walking up to John, just whispering to him, "Anhelonium."
She's been telling him all day.
He's
That's what
just
I've been
like
doing
nods.
all
He's
day.
He has no
Yes.
idea what she's saying. He couldn't figure it out till just now. He
Taking
figured
it
out
in
why
like,
she kept
yes.
whispering anhelonium to him.
Anhelonium.
Crowley
Now
believed.
he knows why.
Now, Crowley believed that drug addiction was a problem limited to the weak-willed,
I love that.
and that his will was too strong to permit anything like substance abuse.
That's the most Crowley thing.
While 1/8 of a grain of heroin was more than enough, Crowley had developed such a tolerance that he was able to take 7 or 8 grains at a time.
Holy hell.
That's like 64 times the amount of heroin that should be enough heroin.
Man's like a horse.
Is that a
I
thing?
say.
Is there enough heroin?
Yes, there's
is there
more
a
than
level
enough.
Of being like, yes, this is the correct amount of heroin.
I feel good about how much heroin I just did.
Yep.
He quit. No, we here at Occult Confessions are against opioid use of all kinds, especially heroin. He quit in 1924, but was back on heroin in 1940 until the end of his life.
Yeah, that's how that goes.
Oh, so he quit for a good, 20 years.
But
Let's get back to the rites of Eleusis, shall we? Someone sang a bit of opera, and Neuberg danced the dance of Pan until he collapsed on the floor.
But
where-
that was a
I was
sight.
gonna say that had been really hot or really not.
But he just kept dancing until he fell over. And for the rest of the ceremony, he just laid there. Right where he fell. Like he danced himself.
Anytime dancing is involved.
He
it's
danced
just-
himself comatose and then just laid on the floor.
I guess that's how you do
Desert really did a number on
it. Go big or
him.
go home. I
Crowley
guess.
spoke a poem in honor of Artemis, and Waddell played her violin so rapturously that many in the crowd, or at least Radcliffe, who was our quote, experienced a form of ecstasy. The rites themselves had a kind of plot involving a man trying to solve the riddle of existence by turning to each of the gods who had been given a night of performance. So one night for Saturn, one night for
What a
yeah,
riddle
Mercury
that
on
would
and
have been. Wow, that's
big riddle.
a lot.
Each god, well, it's the riddle of existence. There is no bigger one.
That's rough.
Each god is unable to answer the request, as Brie imagines, until finally Pan arrives on the last night to tear away the veil of illusion and reveal that no gods are needed. The rule of the law to do what thou wilt is all that's required. Well, it was that easy all along. Each rite, like the proto-ritual to Artemis, involved Waddell's violin, Neuberg's dancing, and the recitation of poetry. Neuberg sometimes danced to the violin, and sometimes to some drumming on a tum-tum.
I have the best image in my head right now.
I think he's probably right on.
Is
Prominent.
a tum-tum a drum?
Yeah, it's a little
Okay, I
bit.
was imagining somebody
Like there's
On their tum-tum.
on their tum-tum.
Tummy tum. Tummy tum-tum.
Yes.
Oh, that's her idea for fan art. Carl.
It's
To
just
draw
Olivia
the
and
rites
I.
of Eleusis.
Yes.
Drumming on their
But Olivia
tummy.
has
Drumming
to
on
be
the
with
tummy.
them.
Yeah.
On her.
They're drumming on her
tum-tum.
Second
tummy.
fan art request, the rites of Eleusis featuring tummy tum drumming.
Yes.
Prominent friends included the chemist George Cecil Jones, who we heard about in the last episode, who looked like Jesus, and the Golden Dawn's Mathers also participated. Much of the performances took place in the dark, and the scandal sheets, under the pretense of reviewing the performance, accused Crowley of conducting sex acts during the performance, including homosexual acts with Jones.
Gotta bring that penetration back.
But here's the thing about Jones. He was a father of 7, and sued the papers for libel.
I mean,
Was he?
Yeah.
I'm assuming Crowley was still the power bottom.
probably.
I don't think they were doing it.
If they
Because
were,
you're not going to
though.
sue if you're... Anyway, these lawsuits made Crowley a household name, actually. So this is what rocketed him to fame, was the scandal around whether or not he was banging Cecil Jones during the rites of Eleusis, which, were open to the public. Enough people testified to Crowley's depravity that Jones actually lost the case, despite his 7 children. But it brought Crowley to the attention of the Ordo Templi Orientis, best known for their practice in sex magic, and Crowley joined up. The 7, I know gay men can have children, but 7 really, you like having sex with your wife a lot.
Or, kids back then were used to work, right? You gotta... Yeah, Jacob?
You got something trapped there?
Just turkey basters. That's all that takes.
I don't know if they were that advanced.
I don't think turkey
I don't know.
basters were...
You get creative.
Get over here, Jones.
Around this time,
It's only
Mrs.
7
Jones.
times.
It's like-
minimum, having sex with someone 7 times. I don't think you have to love it.
but that's
No,
we're
that's a lot of
Okay, now
times
Shannon,
still
let me
for
tell you about the
kiss.
human menstrual cycle.
Yeah.
You're pretty lucky if you only have to do it 7 times to make those children.
I'm just saying.
You're really
that's
hitting
the
it on the
minimum,
nose
okay?
every
Like,
time. You're
really
hitting the
Jones
bullseye
got it going
every
on.
time.
Really hitting it.
Around
Yes,
this,
if you-
anyway, around
get
this
it.
time,
I know how the woman body works.
but you're like 7. You think it just
I'm
takes
just
7.
saying at least 7 times.
You just assume you're fertile most of the time.
There's only one way to figure this out for sure, guys. We have to conduct an experiment.
No,
Still be a gay man.
Although the
have
population
sex
is
with a
down in the
woman
United
7
States.
times,
Around
right?
this time, Crowley filed his canine teeth to sharp points so that he could leave vampiric marks on the young women he often successfully attempted to seduce.
That's kind of hot.
Often?
I love it.
He's pretty good at seducing women. But yeah, now he was leaving vampire bites on them.
It's kind of hot.
He also started defecating on carpets
Oh, that's less hot.
I'm still in
on
it.
the belief that all of his bodily functions were sacred.
What? So what if I just went around being like, I'm
You're
gonna go take a
welcome.
shit. It's sacred.
I don't think it's going to go over well. During the First World War, he moved to America, where he published anti-British propaganda. The British Crowley published anti-British propaganda and made a public display of destroying his passport. Later, he claimed that he had intentionally created absurdly exaggerated materials in favor of the Germans to help the British through their sheer ridiculousness. So in other words, he made pro-German propaganda that was so ridiculous that it actually ended up helping the pro-war cause. Guess what? This was true.
That's a lot of effort.
Yes.
He must have really been forcing that pro-German.
In both the First and Second World Wars, Crowley had direct ties to the British Secret Service. In fact, British Secret Service agent Ian Fleming, best known as the author of the James Bond series, was a friend of Aleister Crowley's.
Wow.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that was true. He really was an agent for the British,
Wow.
making absurd pro-Nazi, not Nazis, we're not at the Nazis yet, but pro-German materials of the First World War.
That's wild.
While in America, his disciples paid his expenses and he kept a relatively nice studio apartment in Washington Square, New York. One day, he announced he would go off into the woods for 40 days and 40 nights. Like
Someone else we know.
several folks we know, yeah. Buddha. Jesus.
Who didn't do that, honestly?
Right,
though?
it's the thing to do. His friends raised some money to fund his adventure, and he used it to buy paint and ropes, because he was not doing any of the Buddha or Jesus stuff. He was scaling up the side of a mountain to write in red, "Every man and woman is a star."
That is not where I thought that was going at all.
Aw.
The local farmers kept him fed while he was at his work. And he met his third Scarlet Woman, Leah Hersig, who he kissed violently on their first meeting.
Like Godfather awkward makeout violently.
Okay.
God, fuck.
You know, like the really awkward, like he's like. I
Never
can't-
seen Godfather.
Huh?
Never seen it.
Really?
Who's getting the kiss in this scenario?
The Godfather?
He's given a kiss.
No, it's not the Godfather. It's people in it.
He's
Kissing
not.
violently. Oh, I think
It's
I know
like
what you're talking
the
about.
awkward, like I can't.
Anyway, he called Leah his Allostrial, or the Ape of Toth.
What a cute nickname.
I'm gonna get Ryan to start calling me that.
A little ape of Toth. And he had 2 children by her, a boy, Dionysus, nice, god of theater, alcohol, and orgies in the woods, and a girl, Anne Leah. What's going on there?
What?
Yeah.
The wife got to dictate that
Yeah,
one.
she's like, I'm not enough. All your women
The
have named.
first one was Dionysus.
Yeah. This one's name is Anne.
After my mother.
So unfortunate.
They moved to Sicily along with a nursemaid, Ninette Shumway, who became another of Crowley's mistresses, of course. He's like a black hole. All women just sort of fall into him.
I would definitely fall into.
Crowley's next disciple was Raoul Loveday, and Loveday makes for an interesting episode that blew up all over the tabloids. Loveday had read Crowley and fallen in love with his philosophy. His wife was a model named Betty May, and she went with him to Sicily to study with Crowley. But Betty May hated Crowley.
I don't like it, Raoul. I just don't like anything about it. I know you liked his books, but these paintings, creepy demons leering at us from every corner, and these pornographic images.
Both men fell ill, and Crowley decided they should sacrifice a cat that had scratched him and offended him.
First the pigeons.
Now the cat.
Offended him.
He made the sign of the pentagram over a cat, and it became mesmerized, staying in its spot until the time of the sacrifice.
No cat would
I was
stand.
gonna say, I wish I could do that and just have my cats not.
Just pentagram over
And
Loki.
yeah, and so he would just stop being a dick.
Here, kitty. We won't let that
Nasty man.
get away with this.
Nasty sacrifice.
Could that just work for anyone? Just like put a pentagram over their head and they're just chill now.
I wish.
Yeah.
Even when Betty May tried to, that would make class a lot easier.
About the same class.
The cat came right back. So even when Betty May tried to move the cat, it came right back to its spot. After 2 hours of magical invocations, Crowley had Loveday slit the cat's throat and drink its blood to cure his ailment. But instead, Loveday collapsed. Crowley predicted he would die on February 16th, so he was like, okay, drink the blood and you'll be fine. And then he drank it and he fell over and he was like,
I mean,
you shall die on the 16th of February.
it was a stray cat's blood.
At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, because everything happens in the afternoon with Crowley. And on the appointed time, at the appointed hour, he did. Even he tried to summon the demon, right? That dark demon in the middle of the day. Yeah, he loves doing stuff in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
I want you to write that it's all his fault. My Raoul would still be alive today if we hadn't gone to live in that horrible place. There was a photograph that all but predicted it. I should have known.
Betty May remembered a picture that had been taken of her and Raoul with the ghostly outline of a young man lingering behind Loveday in the image, and this ghostly figure had its arms outstretched above his head, which was the exact position that Loveday died in.
Ooh,
She reported this and all of her adventures at Crowley's villa to the press, and the Italians kicked him out of the country.
someone was bound to do it.
Incidentally, I'm pretty sure this was Mussolini, so like the fascist
I did
dictator,
know this.
threw
Yeah.
Crowley out of Italy.
That's great.
Leah had taken up with one of his disciples, a man named Mudd, with 2 Ds, who had given Crowley all of his money, and that makes it okay. And Crowley left them to go to Paris. He was like, okay, fine, because I've got plenty of other women. Leah ended up working as a prostitute and a waiter to make her way.
Yikes.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
Crowley married another woman, an American secretary named Maria Theresa, who he called the Serpent.
That's a better name.
That's
I
a
would much rather be
great
called that.
And that's why Jacob had to get his title today. They fought when he took another mistress, the German 19-year-old Hani, whose last name was never recorded. He called her the Monster.
Okay, also,
I
I
would-
would like that.
I would
Yes.
Both women ultimately went insane within a couple of years of meeting the Beast. In the midst of these affairs, Crowley left a suicide note at the top of a high cliff outside Berlin called Hell's Mouth. The press got a hold of the suicide note, and it caused a stir with people around the city and throughout Europe gossiping about Crowley's ignominious end. That is, until he showed up at an exhibition of his own paintings a few days later.
Nice. Nice.
But Crowley wasn't destined to live forever. He did not have an eternal physical life, and as far as I know, he never claimed to have an eternal physical life. In fact, he died on the 5th of December 1947 in Brighton, England. His funeral service was held at the Brighton Crematorium, where a dozen friends attended. Some of his work, including passages from the Book of the Law, were read aloud at the service, and this prompted the press to label the funeral a black mass. Some popular narratives about Crowley have him dying of drug abuse and madness, but in my opinion, this doesn't quite bear out with a 72-year-old man.
Yeah, I think he just...
He lived to old age, and while his health was certainly compromised by his frequent drug use, he did not die the tragic death this kind of narrative implies.
Wait, did you say they read parts of the Book of the Law?
Yeah, at his
Doesn't
funeral
that go
service, yeah.
against...
Yeah.
But he's dead now. What's he gonna do about it?
Probably just like...
Oh, we know this is for your funeral,
But we're gonna...
Okay.
Let's talk legacy, shall we? So we got the life story down. Nice.
Rest in peace.
Let's get to that legacy. First, he's considered the godfather, speaking of godfathers, of Wicca. I'm taking this story from an article by Ronald Hutton, whose work we've used before on this podcast, specifically in our Pagans episode. This is actually a follow-up to our Wicca discussion, Series 2, Episode 6, so if you want to know more about Wicca, go ahead and check that out. Gerald Gardner, one of Wicca's founders and its foremost promoter, met with Crowley on May Day, 1947. The visit had been arranged by the stage magician Arnold Crowther, who was a friend of Gardner's and an admirer of Crowley's. Gardner ended up returning for 3 more visits through the end of the month. Crowley initiated Gardner into the Ordo Templi Orientis up to the 4th degree. Nice. Allowing him to form his own group, and Gardner bought Crowley's complete works. With the OTO nearly defunct, Gardner would have been essentially reviving the group in England, but Gardner struggled to find enough people interested in joining the OTO. He was very interested in Crowley's ceremonial magic, but not so interested in the law of Thelema. He began writing about a witch religion, the roots of Wicca, and shifted his attention in the direction of what would become Wicca and away from the OTO. Gardner circulated a story that Crowley had been interested in his witch religion and hoped to combine it with the OTO. In 1960, in his autobiography, Gardner added that Crowley, learning of the central role of the priestess in Wicca, had told him that he would not be bossed around by any damn woman, and that he didn't see any financial profit in it. Olivia's rolling her eyes and refusing to comment because she's conflicted now. Doreen Valiente, he may not have said it may have been Gardner's story.
Exactly.
Doreen Valiente, the first major female figure in the Wicca religion, repeated this story when she said that Crowley had been indoctrinated into the Wiccan religion, but had left because he objected to the dominance of women. Gardner claimed that Wicca was an ancient religion passed down by family tradition, so to get Crowley to fit into this story, he said that Crowley had been inside a coven when he was very young, so that if Wicca contained some Crowley-esque material, it wasn't that Crowley had given it to Gardner and Gardner had worked it in, but rather that Crowley had learned it from the Wiccans, and that's how it got into all of Crowley's stuff. Do you see? Mm-hmm. So the Wiccans become first in Gardner's version. The fact that this only came out in 1970 was because it had been passed secretly up to then. In fact, Gardner invented Wicca more or less from whole cloth, and now scholarship has more or less borne this out, and he invented it in the 1940s, and Crowley had documented his life well enough that it would be super strange to have left out any reference to being a member of a Wiccan cult in his early years.
That's a stretch.
The fact that Crowley never mentioned it in his diary, that pretty much proves that this never happened, that Gardner probably made it up. Okay. But as far as Crowley's legacy, it seems clear that Crowley's practice had a powerful influence on Wicca as Gardner developed it. In a manuscript used for Wiccan ritual, Ye Book of Ye Art Magical.
Have that one on my shelf.
Do you really?
No.
Okay. Hundreds of pages of ritual were lifted from Crowley's works, like straight plagiarized. Crowley's influence is evident in formulas for ritual purification, the incorporation of sex magic, and the language used during rituals. Doreen Valiente confronted Gardner about his use of Crowley, which she recognized. She was like, hey, didn't you just take this from Crowley's books? A thorough biography of Crowley by his literary executor, John Simons, had reminded the public of Crowley's significance as a magician, but also of his depravity and vice. Valiente read the book and was nervous about incorporating so much of Crowley into Wicca. Gardner admitted that the rituals he'd received from his pagan sources with the family tradition were fragmentary and needed some brushing up, and as a member of Crowley's OTO, he felt like it was okay to borrow liberally from Crowley's stuff.
Of course.
That's what they all say.
Sounds fake.
Valiente considered Crowley a nasty piece of work, and with Gardner's permission set about cutting his influence out of the rituals. This work of cutting Crowley out actually opened the door for Valiente's voice to come into the Wiccan rituals, the only major female voice in the rituals designed to revolve around a priestess, ironically. For his part, Gardner disavowed Crowley, and may have, as part of his disavowal, made up the stories about Crowley's attitude toward Wicca. So it's okay, Olivia.
I know.
Be imagined.
I still have faith.
But the truth of the matter is, Crowley's influence on Wicca was profound, not only by opening the door for Valiente to make her own contribution, but as we've seen, sex magic and all these sorts of things lingered in Wicca, even with Crowley being sort of pulled out. Okay, so that's Wicca. Number 2 of 3 religions, and the third one's Thelema, and we're going to talk about it for a hot second, because we pretty much already have laid out Crowley and Thelema. The next question is an American one. Did Crowley inspire L. Ron Hubbard, at least in part, in his founding of the Church of Scientology? This is a cagey question and involves a really neat story. In addition to Crowley being circumspect about the aspects of his occult career, Hubbard had a habit of making things up, just straight making things up. Please don't come kill us, Scientologists, or attack us with your thetans.
I'll be ready.
Please.
Okay, Brianna's got us. She's going to protect us.
I really don't want to be audited. Not today.
Don't come audit us. Don't try to audit. I think we can say no. Just say no.
I don't know.
So Hubbard had a habit of making things up, including most of his official biography as promoted by the church. The connection between... They're just going to label us like subversive persons after this or something. If they...
Try to come for us, see what happens.
We're going to get gang stuff. I am not associated with Brianna Literal.
The connection between Crowley and Hubbard begins with yet another occult experimentalist, Jack Parsons. He's a fascinating guy. He was an accomplished engineer who actually helped to found the Jet Propulsion Laboratory at NASA.
Have we talked about him?
We haven't. This is our first time bringing him up. He's also the head of the Agape Lodge of the Ordo Templi Orientis in Los Angeles.
Oh.
Yeah. And had trained with Crowley personally. So one of the founders of NASA was a Crowley acolyte.
You know?
Parsons had been engaged in a series of occult rites that he called the Babylon Working, which started in 1946. For Crowley, Babylon is both Earth Mother and Scarlet Woman. Parsons' goal was to incarnate Babylon in what he called a moonchild, as foretold by Crowley. A red-headed woman named Marjorie Cameron joined him for this ritual, and so did Hubbard, having demonstrated a gift for astral vision to Parsons. He was asked to serve as the scribe for this invocation of the moonchild. Hubbard ended up being the voice of Babylon, speaking as the otherworldly entity throughout Parsons' experiments. Hubbard and Parsons created a business together, along with Parsons' sister-in-law and his girlfriend, Betty, to sail yachts from the East Coast to California to sell. Parsons put in over $20,000, most of his life savings, and Hubbard put in $1,000.
Sounds like Hubbard.
Yeah.
Hubbard and Betty attempted to betray Parsons and escape together on a yacht. This is so cool. But Parsons invoked the god Mars, and true story, a squall rose up on the sea and forced them back to the shore.
Parsons must have felt so good that day.
Oh yeah, that was
Really? Like, he was like...
that was a high
knew
point
it,
for
got
sure.
it, yes.
Yeah, he slept well that night.
Yeah.
Mars is on my side.
The Church of Scientology claims that the Babylon working did not take place, and that Hubbard was involved, but that he was a spy sent by the government to infiltrate and disband Parsons' black magic enterprise, and that Hubbard actually had rescued Betty from Parsons' left-handed clutches.
Oh my.
Okay, so here's the thing now. So this is... Crowley, so we can see just through this super cool story that Hubbard and Parsons and Crowley are all sort of intertwined. Crowley's inspiration pops up in Hubbard's work in a number of ways. Hubbard practiced a series of affirmations, now kept secret, that involved invoking a guardian angel, much like Crowley's Aiwas. Hubbard also appears to have practiced a blood rite involving invocations to the Egyptian goddess Hathor. Not Hathor, that was me being like, aha, Hathor.
Yeah.
Egyptian goddess.
Yeah, no, we got it.
Aha, cool, all right. As well as Nuit, Re, Mammon, and Osiris. So it should sound like familiar names. Hubbard mentioned Crowley twice in his known Scientology lectures, calling him his very good friend, though Hubbard never met him. Crowley, who was nearing the end of his life, was not so thrilled with Hubbard and Parsons' experiments, writing to a friend, "I get fairly frantic when I contemplate the idiocy of these goats."
I love him so much. That's the best thing I've ever heard.
Hubbard taught the liberation of the thetan, or spirit, in order to realize one's full potential, which includes seeing through walls and repairing coffee makers through the power of your mind. Join the Church of Scientology. Or don't.
Now I'm gonna use goats as an insult.
This...
You goats. No, isn't it a compliment though? Like,
No, because the
goat,
goats
like- Yeah, you don't wanna be a
were
goat.
on the wrong side. in
No,
the
but,
Bible.
like,
be
no,
one of the
like
sheep,
in, like-
not
Yeah.
the goats.
no, it doesn't represent like greatest of all time.
That's why you can't be left-handed, because the goats were on the left, and the
Yeah.
Bible and the sheep were on the right.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, there's some slang out there where goats is a compliment.
Totes my goats.
That too.
I don't know if it's goats.
I'm hip with the kids. And I know what the kids is saying.
Please continue.
I guess I'm
Richard.
not then, 'cause...
All right, so the point I'm trying to make here with the thetan and the repairing coffee makers is that this is a lot like Crowley's dictum that every man and woman is a star. What he means by that is that we all have these spirits that we can liberate and become powerful occult beings. Hubbard also promoted astral projection, which he called exteriorization. He instructed his students to send their thetans on grand tours of the universe, which they achieved by projecting the thetan out of their bodies.
That's not how that works.
Are you in Scientology?
That's how it works for them. Not for you.
Do you have thetans? Are you familiar with the practice?
But the whole notion of projection, what I'm trying to get at here, Brianna, is that it's pretty Crowley. Like,
Yeah, that's
he's
why I'm like-
influenced this.
It's not...
All right, and that's Scientology. We'll close the door on them now that we're all subversive people
Thank God.
in the eyes of the Church of Scientology. Finally, Crowley created his own religion. Thelema, I don't really know which was the right way. It's basically...
Thelema.
Is it Thelema?
That's what I
think,
feel like
yeah.
I've heard the most, at least.
We'll go with that then. We'll give you the pronunciation on this one.
Yikes.
It's basically a spiritual and philosophical system that takes the Book of the Law as either the central religious tenet or one of the central tenets of the practice. Organizations that are considered Thelemites include Crowley's own Silver Star, the Typhonian Order, the Open Source Order of the Golden Dawn, sort of like revival movement, the Illuminates of Thanateros, these are all such cool names, and the Temple of Set. The Temple of Set will be surfacing in a series of episodes. We're going to do a double episode on Satanism.
I'm so excited.
Same.
But before we do that, we are going to take a detour with the Nazis.
I'm so ready. Also ready.
So
So ready.
Let's
I can
close
talk about
up-
runes out my ass. It's great.
let's close up Crowley so we can get on to the Nazis.
Nazis.
The Nazis and their occultism.
And reptilians.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
The Spear of
I
Destiny.
don't know.
And the Aryan race.
Easy,
Yes.
Tiger. Close up this Crowley episode.
We hereby adjourn. Or I hereby. God.
Yeah, do it on your own, man. Leave us
I
out of this.
hereby adjourn and declare closed this meeting of the Secret Order of Alchemical Actors until such a time as we get together and do it again.
Right, so the end of our Black Magic series is going to go a little something like this. Next episode will be the Nazi occult. And then we're going to be covering the Church of Satan and Satanism and the Satanic Panic in the 80s and the 90s and legends of Satanism. And then we're going to close up with satanic murder cults.
Na 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 na
Yeah.
na na.
It's like Halloween just keeps continuing.
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to stretch Halloween into, I think, February. Almost
Good.
February. Yeah.
That's all I've
year-round
wanted.
for us.
At least past the new year, I think we're going to make it.
Skip Christmas.
And So the podcast actually started on Valentine's Day. Our first episodes had we used the college's equipment, and they sounded horrible. So we went back and ended up having to redo them. So we had to relaunch after Valentine's Day. But my goal was to get a full season in by Valentine's Day. So I think we're on target here. We're gonna make that happen. All right. So the voices that we heard today, we had Brandon Walls, and closing up the Crowley performance for our second episode was Jacob Wheatley, still sitting here so he can say goodbye to you all as Crowley. Oh, that killed him. He couldn't do it.
I was going to make something like a sexual comment.
Oh, go ahead, try. Just do
Would
that.
that still be like...
Yeah, it's pretty Crowley. That's a pretty Crowley thing to do. Go ahead. Seduce our lovely listeners.
For anyone listening, you can call me at... I'm not actually going to give
1-800-POWER-BOTTOM.
1-800 power bottom.
You're playing Crowley.
Oh, whoops. Yes.
Yes.
Your main power bottom is in the vicinity of this college.
This college on the eastern shore of Maryland.
Come looking for me.
Please don't come find us. No, please don't come find
The
us. We
power
don't want
bottom
this.
is in the cornfield.
We don't want a line of people
You're
seeking
waiting in
power
the
bottoms.
cornfield.
I will protect you.
Practicing.
Our brief history was brought to us by John Cook today.
Enjoy your mescaline.
Please don't.
Don't.
Don't enjoy that.
Be fearful.
This episode is going to get us in so much trouble.
Because it's Crowley. Would it
We
be
had
Crowley?
our human of the metal, Brianna Literal,
Yeah.
metal detector. We had our Instaquisitor, Shannon Landers.
Good day.
Good day.
Tips her
day.
hat.
I say
So
good
classy
day.
after
My
that.
lady.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Very genteel. And Olivia Literal, our Grand Master.
I'm here and I'm excited for Satan.
She's literally wearing a sweater, a Christmas sweater that says "Praise Satan" on it, and
It's
it's
got
like,
Baphomet holding a cat.
yeah.
What else would
on
he
our
be doing?
Instagram, so check it
Yeah,
out.
you got your Christmas sweater out early. So, I want to encourage you to subscribe to our podcast if you haven't yet. It was so much fun to come. So go ahead and subscribe and go on, visit us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, like and friend us. And if you're feeling inclined, as we've mentioned too many times, you can contribute on Patreon. Just $1 a month really goes far to making us feel like you love us.
Wow. I mean, we know that you love us even without money.
We do.
But it helps.
It does. My name is Rob Thompson. I am the Supreme Hierophant here at the old Secret Order of Alchemical Actors Theater. And I will see you all next time for Nazis.
Nazis!
Yeah.